Hi, welcome back to the Dylan Rounds case. So there's been a bit of a pattern in recent time, like a trend, where certain YouTubers have gone backwards looking at past footage to try and understand. One of which is Zav Girl, going over previous interviews such as the second and third by the East Idaho News Channel to sieve through and see if any mistakes were made, any switches and changes, or any bits of information that might have gone under the radar and brushed over people's heads, okay? Today, I'm going to do something similar with a different report, and it's just a very short one, and it's from 1 month ago, okay? I'm saying that by the date because I know some people get very picky, whingy, and whiny when it comes to outdated information, okay? Not what I'm saying, it's what it was said, what they said at the time, at the place, at the moment, okay? I just want to compare with two key individuals within the case, and that is Don H, who I've only covered a bit, and, you know, in general has only been talked about so much, and Chase Venstra, who's been more focused on in recent time, okay? Because from the looks of it, one was originally, you know, a suspect, but then that was through misunderstanding and ended up as a witness. That's Chase Venstra. That's how it's been classified as. With Don H, a little bit more questionable that, because here and there, I think he's been classified as a witness because, you know, he's worked with Dylan at some point. He knows Jim in some way. Whereas in this news report I'm going to show you very shortly, even though his name's not directly mentioned, that might be at the time of protection or lack of development within the case, okay? He's not seen as a witness. Another word is used, and we'll look up the definition of that as well. Now, credit to Julie for picking up on this sort of stuff. Smaller things that go unnoticed but are quite important, and either fill in the blanks along the way or counterpoints other things, other claims made, which, you know, raise questioning, which is important. Now, Julie was, you know, somewhat responsible for the, you know, the Heavy D video with Candice, where they were talking about the phone fob, or the key fob, and the gun saying it's been found, then later it wasn't. So she picked up on that contradiction, which was quite important. I'd say it's quite important what Julie's done, because what it highlights, it shows as an example that, you know, whilst the outsiders, the YouTubers, the odd investigator, lone wolf individual, or just simple viewer who could be criticised and witch hunt because of spreading supposed false information, we can always refer back to the inside people who should know better but just make as similar mistakes as others, the family with the key fob and the gun. So that's why it's worth picking up on these little details, because it's just important, okay? So I'm going to give my thoughts and opinions on this bit of footage today, okay? You can leave your thoughts down below in the comment section, and yeah, let's get into it.
Box Elder County authorities received information from a person of interest who lives in Lucin, Utah, where Dylan lived. The person of interest told deputies that after Dylan went missing, James Brenner gave him firearms to, quote, hold on to due to past experiences with law enforcement. Brenner is a convicted felon, and police previously searched his home and found gunpowder and ammunition. They took him into custody on weapons charges.
So, as you saw in that news report, it said a person of interest. That's different to a witness, and I'll explain later on, okay? So, the individual they're talking about is Don H. And as it said, the individual lives in Lucin, Utah. So, we know Don lives in Lucin, because I know there was a bit of questioning at some point by people saying, where does he live? You know, if he's got a trucking company in Idaho, what's he doing in Lucin? And so on. But it would make sense to why he living or lived in Lucin up to this point, because he was working with or working for Dylan on the farm. okay? As I said, with that backstory, I think, was it Larry who called him? Larry Rounds, longtime friends with Don. And then Larry introduced Don to Dylan, started working on the farm. And then at some point, Don introduced Jim Brenner, because they were longtime friends, to Dylan. So that's probably why Don is being focused on more and classified differently to Chase, because Don knows Jim more than Chase, I guess. But, you know, they've all known Dylan in some way, so you could say they're all suspects or worth looking at equally, right? So in addition to that news report, you heard it say about the person of interest reached out, gave information about, you know, Jim giving guns to this person of interest, which is Don. And we know that because, as we've seen previously in the reports in that court case, if you want to call it that, Don was saying how Jim reached out to him, said, can you hold these guns, these black powder stuff, as well as a .22 caliber rifle, which Jim supposedly stole from a trailer that owed him money. So we're filling in the blanks and tying things together as we go along. So when back then it was saying a friend of Jim, that was Don, okay? When it said a friend was interviewed by the FBI, that was Don, because Don reached out. Don handed that .22 rifle over to the authorities, and this is why things are processed that way, and as you see in this report I just showed you before. But the second thing that really stands out to me, and I don't know if it does with you, the way it was worded in the news report at least was Jim reached out and gave the firearms to Don after Dylan's disappearance, after Dylan went missing. Do you understand that? You know, the way it was worded in the past was, oh, Jim reached out to Don earlier, or reached out to someone earlier, can you hold these items for me, this and that. But the way it's worded this time round is, so let's just get into mind the dates. Dylan was reported as missing on the 30th of May. So if it's worded in the news report as the guns were handed over to Don by Jim after Dylan went missing, then it would have been after the 30th of May, right? So that does make it seem very suspicious, you know, right after an event, or right after an event has been announced, and then there is suspicious actions going on. You know, this is what I'm saying. It's like, because Dylan has now been reported as missing, and now things are going to go underway, investigations, news report, it's like, oh shit, we better get rid of the rest of the evidence now and move it on before things do build up. You know, it's kind of interesting how it wasn't done beforehand. It does make you question, and you can leave your thoughts down below in the comment section or wherever. Is Jim more suspicious? Let's just do a scenario, okay? And then you give your thoughts. Would Jim be more suspicious if he handed over the firearms and stuff to Don before Dylan was reported as missing? Or is it more suspicious suddenly handing over firearms to somebody else to keep a hold of and hide from the police after Dylan has been reported missing, and then authorities have started coming in? You know, it's very interesting that, to be honest, how it's worded. I mean, at the end of the day, the news report could have been worded wrongly, and there might be updates since, corrections, but I'm just saying what's been said in that report, okay? And although this video seems to be slanting more back to Jim as being more suspicious, this is the thing, Don can be somewhat suspicious as well, holding on to these firearms. It's not always to do with playing the main role, but a side role, a side part within it, direct, indirect. And this is where the person of interest line comes into play, okay? It's not to do with being the sole and main person responsible for Dylan disappearing, but for playing a role in aiding, do you call it aiding and abetting? Or is that something else? But aiding in the main suspect, you know, with the procedures and how it turned out. Let me share with you the definition of a witness and then the definition of a person of interest, okay? So here is the term and the definition. We can click on the law one, how it is defined in a law, and it says, Witness, a person giving sworn testimony to a court of law or the police, a key witness at the trial. A person who is present at the signing of a document and signs it themselves to confirm this, a deed signed in the presence of a witness. Used to refer to confirmation or evidence given by signature or under oath. In witness thereof, the parties sign this document. So basically, it's referring to an individual who is, basically innocent but present at the scene of the crime or at a point in time when the victim was present before everything unfolded. So, like, you're around somebody, the way they act, how they appear, them talking to you. You might even come across a potential suspect who is present nearby you. And then with time, whatever happened. You weren't there to see it actually happen, but you were there at a certain point in the timeline of when things went underway. So you give your side of the story, what you saw, how you felt, was anything odd, did anything show up, did you see anything, hear anything, that sort of stuff. So that's witness for you. Let's move on to person of interest. Okay, so this one's a bit longer, but I'll read it out to you anyway. Person of interest. This article is about a law enforcement term. For other uses, see person of interest. So all this below, here we go. Person of interest is a term used by law enforcement in the United States, Canada, and other countries when identifying someone possibly involved in a criminal investigation who has not been arrested or formally accused of a crime. It has no legal meaning but refers to someone whom the police are interested, either because the person is cooperating with the investigation, may have information that would assist the investigation, or possesses certain characteristics that merit further attention. Let's go down a bit. While terms such as suspect, target, and material witness have clear and sometimes formal definitions, person of interest remains undefined by the US Department of Justice. Unsub is a similar term which is short for unknown subject, used in a TV show. Person of interest is usually used as a euphemism for suspect, and its careless use may encourage trials by media. Now, linking back to that news report video as it referred to Don as a person of interest, if we tie the definition on screen right now with the different outcomes and why it could be applied to Don, let's try and theorize or come up with ideas, okay? You can come up with your own as we go along or as I talk to you. Leave your thoughts and reactions in the chat, okay? So, let's start with the first one, which I highlighted in red at the bottom. It's either because the person is cooperating with the investigation. Now that one immediately shows links to the process of that news report and the information presented, and as we've seen elsewhere, because from the looks of it, Don is cooperating with the police, with the FBI, because Don, as I said, was the guy that reached out, handed over that .22 rifle, surrendered it, and did an interview with the FBI talking about Jim, his best friend, longtime friend, and telling them what he's like and what he wanted Don to do was to hold on to the weapons. So despite that loyalty, despite knowing Jim for so long, Don was honest. So it makes you think, is Don cooperating because despite being friends, he wants to save himself? You get what I'm saying? Basically, throw Jim under the bus. Maybe Don did play a role in Dylan's disappearance or knows about it and knows Jim is capable. And he knows that Jim wanted to pass stuff on to Don. And Don was like, oh no, I don't want to be a part of this. but he had no choice maybe because he was forced, or he just went along with it at the time because he was scared of Jim and what he could do. And then shortly afterwards, Don was like, right, I need to get out of here. I need to report Jim and, clear my name before I get dragged down with Jim myself. So, even if that's the right thing to do, it can still be interpreted as throwing your friend under the bus because, you've seen it before where you might be more likely to stand up or defend somebody even if they're in the wrong. And yet in this case, Don doesn't do that. I mean, there is still that possibility, as I said, that Don could be responsible in some way, but to make it seem like he's not as suspicious is to put the blame on somebody else, or at least the focus, and just make it seem like it's all on Jim, when it was actually shared between the two. Another way could be by, cooperating with the police, the law enforcement, the FBI agents. Maybe a deal could be struck, negotiating. You've seen it with criminals or potential criminals where they might get a lesser sentence if they reveal certain information or if they become an informant, working on the inside. You've seen it on the news with like drug cartels, gangs, mafias, stuff like that, where you've got an ex-criminal who's turned into like a secret detective, still working with these criminals and gangs, organizations, but secretly reporting back to the police, which can lead to a conviction of an important wanted person or crackdown on an operation. And in return, that original suspect or person of interest ends up being released or gets a lesser sentence. So it's like you give something and they give back. So that could be the case with Don. Let me know your thoughts down below. I do feel that there is more to this, in my opinion. So I'm just trying to come up with the different ideas. Now, what I will say is, I can't imagine Jim being too pleased. Jim probably is the one to know what Don is like since they were friends. Could James Brenner, be surprised at what Don has done? Could Jim be angry? Let's just say Jim was out in the open now. Highly unlikely because he's in custody. He's still got his court date set to, I think, September the 12th or round about that. If he was released right now, what do you think Jim would do? Just put aside the whole thing with Dylan. Knowing that your best friend has turned on you or handed you in a way or assisted, how would you feel? You'd be frustrated, angry, annoyed, that loyalty gone, stabbed in the back. That's the sort of feeling you might get. And with Jim and his personality, his behaviour, what he's known for, losing control, attacking and hurting people, even if there's not much of a reason to do so, just imagine what Jim would be like if there was a reason for it. Just imagine, it'll be like everything times 1,000. Could he be in a fit of rage? Could he just hurt Don or do much worse? It's worth thinking about because many things can happen afterwards. I know it is about Dylan Rounds, that's true, and that's what's important, but it's just trying to get that understanding that if for whatever reason Jim was out there, what could he be capable of next? If he's angry as well and he's got a motivation behind it, it can lead to all kinds of dark stuff. So that's just the first point, okay? Let's move on to the second one. So the next bit says information that would assist the investigation. Kind of ties in with the cooperating part, as I said beforehand. Don might have been present or nearby at the time, might have heard an argument, a sound of pain, might have even saw Dylan running away. Who knows, it could be anything like that at the time or just beforehand, like the guns and stuff being passed over, and Don's like, or this information could help in the investigation. The police have already seen certain things that would tie Don to Jim beforehand. And the example of that would be Don being friends with Jim and also Don living on the land. You know, if we just rewind back to Jim in the first place, one of the main guys, you know, he was classified as a person of interest, technically speaking. Before he became the key main suspect in custody, Jim would have been seen as a person of interest too, tied with Dylan. The reason why is because if we're adding in that second point where it says may have information that would assist the investigation. How exactly? Well, if Jim is on the land of Dylan's, Jim will know Dylan, may have seen Dylan at the time of when Dylan disappeared. You might be wondering, what am I talking about? Like, as I'm saying, I'm talking backwards in time of when it first started the investigation, okay? I just want to use an example one by one. Hold with me, okay? So, you got Jim at the time. The police are just starting from scratch thinking, where do we go with this? Who do we look at? Well, Jim, this individual lives on Dylan's land, squatting, so he might have information. He might have seen something with the outcome of Dylan because he's on the land. He's nearby to where it happened. The boots are nearby to where it happened, where Jim lives. So he might have seen something, he might have heard something, so we best investigate. We also know he worked on the farm with Dylan, and we've heard the odd report of the odd argument, confrontation. So if we tie all that together, maybe Jim might have information and know something. Now, as we know, if Jim now is the main suspect and is the one responsible, he's probably less likely to provide information because, you know, if you're the main person, you know, you're responsible, you're not going to say, okay, I know this, I know that, this and that, and then incriminate yourself. You're probably going to keep quiet or say no comment, right? So that could be the case now with Jim. As other people come up and step up like Don, that can assist and pull back that balance, the scales, and then start to aim it more towards Jim, maybe. Does that make sense? Now let's not, you know, discredit that Jim could still have had the opportunity to give information, but twist it in such a way that it put blame on somebody else. That doesn't seem to have happened from what I know of. You can let me know what you think yourself, if I did miss anything on that, but just worth taking into mind, okay? So, let's just refer back to Don Hatley, in terms of this second point about information that would assist in the investigation. So the police knew that Don lived on the land. The police would have known eventually that Don worked with Dylan and also worked with Jim because they were both best friends, and Don introduced Jim to Dylan. So there might be some kind of like triangular connection going on there. So where one thing happens with one person, the other person is there to witness or hear about it at the time or afterwards. So they might think, the police, okay, so if we tie all this together, Don might have a chance of knowing something if he's within the area with those type of people involved or, you know, in question. So we'll get him, we'll ask him, and we'll see what happens. And that's basically what happened. Now, from the looks of it, as I said, Don voluntarily stepped up. So could that make him less suspicious? Could he be seen as more of a good guy because of doing that? But as I said, there could be manipulative reasons for stepping up in the first place to seem not as bad. Maybe get more of a slap on the wrist. Stuff like that. Worth taking into mind. Now the final bit where it says, or possesses certain characteristics that merit further attention. So I'm going to refer back to Jim Brenner on this example first of all, so you understand. So, when it's talking about merit further attention to do with characteristics of an individual, how do they appear? How do they act? What are they known like? How are they best described? Their appearance, body language, tone of voice, presence, and everything. You might not know on the spot, but you can always look back and refer to maybe past examples of what might have happened which reveal something. And to be fair, with Jim and his past criminal history, his outburst, his violence, aggression, being unstable, overacting at times, like why are you attacking a 70-year-old? Why did you fatally shoot someone? Maryland in the 90s or so, or 1980s, that sort of stuff. And it isn't just one thing, it's multiple events and occurrences over time. And then with other people reporting, maybe in Montello, saying, yeah, when Jim was here in the past living around, he was reckless, he was angry, he was moody, he seemed like a bad guy. You don't want to be around someone like him because if he loses control, you could get hurt. That could be the sort of thing where then you think, oh, characteristics, profiling, he's capable of this, he's done that. He appears this way and it shows that. And so on. So the police could be thinking, okay, so with all that in mind, he could be a person of interest and we need to keep tracking his behaviour and monitoring it because he could turn, he could change, he could reveal something at a certain point. We saw it, or some of us saw it with Ellen in that, I can't remember her last name, but Ellen in the Salty Pancakes live stream when Ellen was talking to Jim Terry and, it was a bit all over the place at first, but Jim kept her there, let her talk on and on and on. Ellen eventually started drinking more, getting more drunk, more rowdy, more verbal and everything. And because of being drunk, she ended up revealing more of the truth or supposed truth. So it's that sort of behaviour, like just stick around, just keep on being patient and maybe something might be revealed directly, indirectly. And I guess it was in that case, linking back to Jim. Carry on observing Jim, his body language, facial stuff, even his clothing, such as wearing supposed Dylan's hat, maybe as a form of intimidation, playing mind games and stuff like that to see if the police catch on or not. So I guess that's what it's like referring to. Now, if you're applying it to Don, who's seen as a person of interest, would that apply to him? I can't really comment too much on that because I don't know what Don's personality or behaviour is like. All I know is he's got a bit of criminal past history back then, but it wasn't as extreme as someone like Jim. But with that criminal past history, you could look back at that, such as the police, look at the records, the information, what were those crimes, what were they associated with, was there any patterns within, does it reveal a certain type of behaviour, personality or characteristics that would imply someone like that is capable of this, that and much more? And could it branch on? So that's the sort of stuff you need to ask yourself and question, I guess. Is there anything else about Don? Well, Don might know certain people, friends with Larry, friends with Jim. So could that reveal anything about his characteristics? Well, technically, yes. Let's look at it this way. If you're a person that surrounds yourself with bad people, like gang members, criminals, hardened people, maybe you are similar yourself in some way, because at the end of the day, people tend to be around others that relate to them in characteristics, behaviour, personality, certain life things, and so on. So to be able to get on with another criminal or a criminal, maybe that relating part is because you were a criminal once in the past, so you understand what it's like on the inside. You understand how things can be, the consequences, but also maybe the benefits, who knows? So someone like Don, who's got a bit of criminal past history, meets Jim at some point. They end up start talking a little bit, sharing, oh, what have you done? What have you been in for? What trouble have you got up to? And then they share, and then they're like, oh, we're kind of similar. and then get on well, become friends, and so on. And if the police know about Jim's past history, and they also know about Don's, they could be a bit more wary, because when it comes to certain crimes, or just crimes in general, and there is a suspect who's the main focus point, still, if there are connections and ties with other people like family members, friends, other associates, the police are going to go to them quick and monitor, check, and treat them as a person of interest as well. Might not be for long, but sometimes it could be. So with Don being friends with Jim, then it would make sense being a person of interest because of the characteristic part, how Don is, who he associates himself with and who he hangs around, who is or just so happens to be the main suspect. So it's like a chain reaction, like a hierarchy of person of interest, I guess. So you can, leave your thoughts on what you think in the chat. Okay, so quite a bit to process there, considering the news clip was only 37 seconds long, but I feel it kind of reinforces Don's involvement in some way. Although I might have talked about it briefly before, it just kind of strengthens and reinforces certain points. But there is that back and forth notion of Don's a witness, but now he is, kind of like a suspect worth looking into because he might know something. It's like, okay, how's things developing? We're going back and forth like with all the other information. Is there going to be a sudden twist like with Chase where all of a sudden, oh, Don isn't guilty whatsoever, like how Chase was, and he was never investigated to begin with? Is that what's going to happen with Don? I don't know. Do I have any predictions? On the spot, I don't know if I can, but okay, let's just see, okay? Predictions, let's tie it in with Jim's court case in September. So let's say it comes to September. Is Don going to appear in court, testify in some way? Is he going to be questioned himself? That's going to be interesting, that, because it's to do with the gun charges, right? Okay, that's one of the main things with this court thing about possession of firearms despite being a felon, and yet you got Don H who received firearms from Jim. So you'd think Don would appear in court because he's like a witness with that regards, at least, aside from the Dylan Rounds case. So that'll be interesting to see. I feel he should appear in court because there are connections and he is a witness for that singular event. And it makes you think, how will Don word things? Is he going to be truthful, hard, and straight to the point? Or is he going to be a little bit reluctant? Is he going to stumble on his words? Will he back out? Because if you look at it from the beginning, Don reached out to the FBI and the police, but that was away from Jim. You know what I'm saying? Now, I'm trying to think. Was Jim arrested or put into custody or something just before Don made those, reached out to people, or was it after? Just a slight little question there, because Jim, as I said, if Jim was one of the first persons to be looked at just, briefly, and he would have been seen as a suspect or a person of interest because of being on the land and being directly in contact with Dylan, he could have been taken in, and then that followed by Don further reinforcing certain points of criminality and breaking certain laws, felon, ownership of firearms at the time, because Don was able to, since Jim wasn't present. Does that make sense? If Jim's not present, Don might have more confidence to reach out and to be a bit sneaky, possibly, or just to reveal the truth and nothing but the truth. Whereas if you're in court, and although there's a distance and they're restrained, and you've got guards and other people there, witnesses and stuff, and authority figures, you have to stand there and stare that criminal, that person, and in this case, your friend, longtime friend, you got to stare them into the eye whilst talking and revealing the truth and saying what's what. Will Don be able to do that, or will he be a bit nervous? Will he back out, or will he feel guilty? because he knows Jim well. It'll be interesting to see, will it show where loyalties lie, or is it too late? Is it going to be one of those things where Don is honest and truthful, but Jim might hold a grudge? And it probably won't happen because of the years, the sentencing, and the age Jim currently is, like 58. But if Jim did get out some way or another, I don't know how, would he come looking after Don for revenge? A lot tied up within this case. People say the Dylan Rounds case is mysterious and there's this and that to look at, whereas someone like Jim Terry describes the case, like the basic foundations of it, as not exactly that interesting. You know, person went out into the desert and went missing, etc. But I'd say it's kind of interesting because of the knock-on effects it can have, not just directly within the case of Dylan, but other people as well associated. It could be a form of collateral damage. I mean, I'll give you an example of collateral damage, which probably won't happen, but could happen. So if Jim was out in the open, for whatever reason, in Montello, tracking Don down, let's say Don is in a bar, minding his own business, doing his own thing, he's trying to be a better man, let's say, getting away from the criminal past, and despite maybe associating himself with the odd few bad people in recent time like Jim, he wants to cleanse himself, so he reached out to the police despite loyalties, friendships and ties, and, you know, cut that loose. And now he's doing his own thing in peace, in Montello, in Saddle Sore Bar on a certain day, nice and sunny, quiet, kind of peaceful, maybe a few other people around, and then Jim comes round, tracking him down with a gun, whatever gun it might be, starts trying to shoot Don, but maybe misses, because as we know, he's not got the best aim, as we saw in Lance's video, where on Jim's former property trailer, the barrels and the shooting target wasn't exactly on point. There was a few misses. So if Jim's got a bad aim, he's firing about, missing and stuff, ends up hitting a few innocent people, killing them or just fatally hurting them, life-changing injuries, then shooting a few more other people in a fit of rage, maybe eventually getting to Don, but at what cost? A lot of collateral damage. Then Jim gets sent down and that's the end of that. But you get an idea of how things can expand and develop and just break out of nowhere and branch off from the Dylan Rounds case. Just like how we said about the missing people, other missing people within the area or nearby. It could be tied to Dylan's disappearance because of certain characteristics shared between the lot of people, such as maybe being young, youngish, somewhat vulnerable in a way, like by yourself on that land, and so on. So that's what I'm referring to. You can let me know what you think down below. What do you think the outcome of the trial will be? Do you think Don will appear in some way? Will there be any updates on Don? Any interviews? Any extra information? Or is that it now? Feel free to let me know. Now, we don't finish there because I do have some other important stuff to point out. As you know, you've got this individual there. Hi, Ellen. How are you doing today? You put a bit of size on since last time. Oh,
Which I think you're a big
shouldn't have said
prick.
that on camera. Probably gonna get taken out for that or something, or slapped or beaten with that belt. No, I'm scared. But previously, in the last video live premiere, one individual, Fraser, shout out to him, said he wants to see a giant gorilla have a fight with the penguin. So basically, this is a knockoff of the King Kong versus Godzilla, okay? I don't have Godzilla, but I do have the penguin who's got a bit of a hunchback. So he will do, okay? So you don't know the size of the gorilla in terms of his actual size, so I'll try and fit it into frame. He's not supposed to be wearing a hat, but I don't know, I just thought it looked different. So there you go. That's nice to meet you. My name's Ellen. I've been around a lot of people. They say that Montello is mainly dominated by males. At least 80% are males, but you know what? That 20%, I play most of that role. I do most of the work. All right, calm down, calm down. We can get more into that later. So you can see the size of him, big boy or big person or something. He does have a hole right there, which is very, actually I shouldn't be putting my finger there, sorry. But you know, like when things tear, it's just an unfortunate place to, you know, to have it. It's not exactly an appropriate area to have, but it must have torn, so there's a hole there, which, yeah, I don't know why I brought that up, to be honest, but you get the idea. So, well, what idea? I don't know. So you've got the, you've got Ellen, or you've got someone like that, and then you've got the penguin. So, Silver Pengs, Silver Heels, what do you have to say to this gorilla? Feel free to say now, okay?
Well, how's it going? I put on a fucking shirt,
Oh my
man.
God, man. That's wild.
No, because he's the littlest prick.
Bar none, flat out. That's wild, man.
You can't hurt me.
Yeah, okay. Okay, you calm down, Silver Heels. Okay, just give us a second. So what do you have to say in response?
Nobody cares.
Whoa.
Anyway, ignore that black woman yelling.
You can't hurt me. Bring it up.
Oh,
Come on.
you tell him.
Bring
Yeah.
the fucking shit up.
Oh,
Let's
oh,
bring it out,
this
buddy.
person seems very keen. You know, this person might give a piece of them to you. Do you want that, Silver Heels? Can you cope? Is that going to give you a heart attack at your age?
She's fair game.
Oh my God,
Fair
man.
game.
You're all under control. Those hiking poles and sticks, indentations, and those straps are gonna save you, man, from this individual, this wild beast, man.
I don't listen to your fucking shit because your shit means
Whoa.
nothing to me. Bring it
Whoa,
up.
bring it on. Yeah, okay. I'm calling you a prick.
I
you
don't
gonna
care,
stand for that? Yeah?
sweetheart.
What are you gonna do?
A fucking
Oh
numbskull.
no. Oh, here we go. Jesus Christ. Why am I always caught up in the middle of it? It's probably because I'm always sitting on the bloody fence. In this case, I'm sitting on the bed. Probably not the best place to be if Ellen's around. Bloody hell. Right, anyway, man. Anyway, this is getting too out of hand. I need to step in. Also, fucking hell, this is a bit of a handful, this. Shout out to Chrissy or Christy, who mentioned that banana emoji, because speaking of which, I've got a giant banana in my hand right here. I'm gonna beat this bitch over the head. Piss off. Some people are probably going to wonder what the banging is next, or they get more disturbed and more confused as the days go on. But that's basically it, okay? I mean, it makes sense. So you can leave your thoughts down below, what you think with this situation, the news report. I know it's outdated, but the way it was worded, it does make you think, okay? And the situation with Chase as well, because, you know, Chase has seemed more just as a witness, less suspicious, doesn't matter, despite what he's capable of. I would say Chase is more reckless than Don, okay? I might be wrong, but that's all I know from Don, is the criminal history of Chase is more reckless, more wild, just like Jim. So those two, Jim and Chase, still seem more dangerous than someone like Don, but Don could be caught up in it all in some way and played a part too, by choice or not, and he's trying to right the wrong or clear his name by, you know, reaching out to authorities. Anyway, I think that's it for now. Leave your thoughts down below. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.